The hotel room door opened, and my wife walked in wearing someone else's shirt. I was sitting in the chair by the window, lights off, watching her fumble with the key card she thought belonged to room 438. This was room 438. Our room. The one I'd booked 3 hours ago after the front desk clerk confirmed that yes, a Mrs. Olivia Patterson had checked in yesterday afternoon, and no, Mr. Patterson hadn't been with her. Jesus! She jumped back, hand to her chest. David, what are you doing here? That's my dress shirt, I said calmly. The blue one. You gave it to him? Even in the dim light from the hallway, I could see her face drain of color. The door swung shut behind her, triggered by the automatic closer, and we sat in darkness for 3 full seconds before she found the light switch. I can explain, she started. Don't. I held up my phone. The screen showed a photo I'd taken 20 minutes earlier. Olivia and a man I didn't recognize, walking into the hotel restaurant downstairs, his hand on the small of her back. I've been getting notifications for 2 months. Your iPad is still linked to your iPhone. Every message, every photo, every hotel reservation. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. You've been spying on me? I almost laughed. You shared your Apple ID with me 4 years ago so I could download apps on your tablet for Emma. Remember? You never changed the password. That's an invasion of privacy. You sent him a topless photo in our bathroom, the one with Emma's drawing taped to the mirror. My voice cracked on our daughter's name, the only break in my composure I'd allow myself tonight. She made that for Mother's Day. Olivia's face shifted through several expressions: panic, anger, calculation. I'd been married to her for 9 years. I knew every tell. Right now, she was deciding whether to deny, deflect, or attack. She chose attack. You're never home anyway. You're always at the firm, always choosing work over us. What did you expect? I expected you not to sleep with my associate. I stood up, pulling the printed messages from my jacket pocket. Tyler Brennan, 28 years old, started at Patterson and Whitmore 6 months ago. The same week you suddenly wanted to have lunch downtown twice a week. I'd spent the last 72 hours doing nothing but preparing. The initial shock of seeing those first messages had lasted maybe 10 minutes. Then the attorney in me took over, and I did what I do best. I built a case. David, please. I filed for divorce this morning. You'll be served tomorrow at your mother's house. I'm assuming you'll go there when you leave here. You can't just... Emma needs her mother. Emma needs a stable home, which is why I filed for primary custody. I pulled out another document. Documented evidence of parental neglect. Remember last Thursday when you told me you were taking Emma to gymnastics? You dropped her at your sister's instead. For 5 hours. While you met him at the Riverside Inn. Katie loves watching Emma. Your sister didn't know she was babysitting. She thought it was an emergency. She told me that when I called her yesterday. I'd recorded that conversation too. Katie had been horrified when I explained what was really happening during these emergencies. Olivia's legs seemed to give out. She sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing that shirt. My shirt. The one I'd bought for our anniversary trip to Napa 2 years ago. I love you, she whispered. This was just... It was stupid. A mistake. We can fix this. You've been sleeping with him for 4 months. You used our joint credit card to book this hotel. You told our daughter that mommy had to work late. I grabbed my overnight bag from beside the chair. There's no fixing this, Olivia. There's just what comes next. What about the firm? You can't fire Tyler. That's wrongful termination. It would be if I were firing him for the affair. I moved toward the door. But I'm not. I'm firing him because he's been using firm resources for personal matters, falsifying his timesheets and billing clients for hours he spent with you. I have the hotel check-ins cross-referenced with his billing records. 3 times he claimed to be in court while he was actually here. I'd spent 16 hours going through every timesheet, every calendar entry, every expense report. Tyler had been sloppy. They always are. You're destroying his career over this? No. He destroyed his career when he committed billing fraud. The affair is just how I found it. I opened the door. My lawyer will contact yours. Don't come home tonight. I changed the locks at 4 p.m. Your things are at your mother's. You can't keep me from my own house. It's my house. My name on the deed. You insisted we put it in my name alone for tax purposes. Remember that conversation with your accountant? Another thing I'd verified yesterday. In Virginia, where we lived, property owned before marriage or kept in one name could remain separate property. We'd bought the house 3 years ago, and Olivia's accountant had insisted, for her business tax purposes, that only my name appear on the deed. I'd thought it was odd at the time. Now I was grateful. Emma is at my sister's house. Diane picked her up from school today. She'll stay there until we establish a custody arrangement. Diane had been furious when I told her. She'd never liked Olivia, and now she had a reason. I stepped into the hallway, then turned back. One more thing. Tyler's wife, Jennifer, I'm meeting with her attorney tomorrow. She's filing too. Thought you should know. The look on Olivia's face, pure shock, told me she hadn't known Tyler was married. Some people just can't help themselves. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Olivia's hand remained frozen on the door handle, her body half turned toward escape. You can leave, I said. But you should know. I filed the paperwork 3 hours ago. Emergency custody hearing is scheduled for Tuesday morning at 9. Her face went white. You can't. Parental neglect. Pattern of deception. Unstable living situation. I kept my voice level, clinical. I have documented evidence of 14 occasions where you claimed Emma was with Katie while you were actually meeting Tyler. I have your text messages discussing how to coordinate your lies. I have hotel receipts showing you were in Fredericksburg when you told Emma you were at a work conference. I never, she stopped. I watched her mentally review those conversations, searching for what I might have captured. You did. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to a screenshot. March 23rd. You told Emma you had to work late on a Saturday. Tyler's credit card shows dinner for 2 at Magnolia's at 7:15. Your phone's location data puts you there until 10:40. You tracked my phone? Shared family plan. All perfectly legal. I set the phone down. April 6th. You told Emma you were helping Katie move furniture. Tyler billed the firm for 4 hours of client work that afternoon. His phone was off. Yours was at the Riverside Inn from 2 p.m. until 6. She sank onto the edge of the bed. This is insane. This is what happens when you lie to your daughter. My voice hardened. When you use her as your alibi while you're sleeping with someone else. I love Emma. You told her you loved her every time you lied to her face. I picked up the folder again, pulled out another set of documents. These are statements from Emma's teacher, her soccer coach, and the parents of 3 of her friends. Want to know how many times you've been late picking her up in the past 4 months? 17. How many games you've missed? 6 out of 12. How many playdates you forgot about entirely? 4. I had things. You had Tyler. I dropped the papers on the bed beside her. Read them, Mrs. Peterson had to wait with Emma for 45 minutes on April 19th because you didn't answer your phone. Emma cried. She thought something had happened to you. Olivia's hands trembled as she picked up the first statement. I watched her eyes move across the words, watched the reality of what she'd done settle over her. Where is she? Her voice cracked. Where's Emma? Safe, with people who actually show up when they say they will. I want to see her. You'll see her Tuesday, at the hearing. I paused. Unless you'd like to make this easier. Her head snapped up. What do you mean? Agree to the custody arrangement now. I get primary. You get supervised visitation until you can demonstrate stability. No lawyers, no fight, no ugly testimony about your affair in open court. Supervised? She stood, anger flooding back. She's my daughter. Then you should have thought about that before you started lying to her. I kept my voice flat. Before you started using her as cover for your affair. Before you prioritized Tyler over every commitment you made to her. I made mistakes. You made choices. I picked up my briefcase. You chose Tyler over Emma's soccer games. You chose hotel rooms over parent-teacher conferences. You chose lying over being present for your own child. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Please, David, please. I'll end it. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't take her from me. I'm not taking her from you. I moved toward the door. You already did that yourself. Wait. She grabbed my arm. I looked down at her hand, then at her face. She released me immediately. What do you want? What will it take? I want Emma to have a stable home. I want her to have a parent who doesn't lie to her. I want her to not grow up thinking this. I gestured between us, at the hotel room, at everything we'd become. Is what marriage looks like. I can change. You can sign the agreement. I pulled a document from my briefcase, set it on the desk. My attorney drew it up. It's fair. More than fair, considering. She moved to the desk, scanned the first page. This gives you everything. This gives Emma stability. I pointed to a specific clause. You get her every other weekend once you've established a permanent residence. Wednesday dinners. Alternating holidays. Full visitation rights as long as you maintain appropriate boundaries and don't expose her to… I paused. Inappropriate relationships. Inappropriate… Understanding dawned. You mean Tyler? I mean anyone you're involved with until the divorce is final, and you've been in a stable relationship for at least 6 months. I tapped another section. Standard morality clause. You don't introduce Emma to romantic partners without prior agreement. You don't have overnight guests when she's in your care. You maintain a suitable living environment. This is a prison. This is parenting, I straightened. Something you seem to have forgotten how to do. She read further, flipping pages. You're keeping the house. It's in my name. You insisted on that, remember? For tax purposes. I allowed myself a thin smile. Your accountant's advice. Very sound, as it turns out. My car is a lease in your name. You keep it. I keep mine. I pointed to the financial section. No alimony. Clean break. You're employable, educated, and capable of supporting yourself. Virginia law doesn't favor permanent support in cases of adultery anyway. Her finger stopped on a line. What's this? Party B agrees to make no claim against Party A's retirement accounts, investment portfolios, or professional income. Exactly what it says. You waive any claim to my assets. In exchange, I waive any claim to yours. I don't have any assets, her voice rose. You know that. Everything is in your name. Everything. Not everything. You have your 401k from your previous job, your jewelry, your personal accounts. I paused. And you'll have whatever settlement Tyler's wife doesn't take in her divorce. She looked up sharply. What? Tyler's wife, Jennifer. Her attorney is filing tomorrow morning. I checked my watch. Well, this morning now, 9 a.m. How do you… I called her, Wednesday afternoon, told her everything, sent her copies of the same evidence I compiled for my own case. I kept my tone conversational. She was grateful, very grateful. Apparently, Tyler's been working a lot of late nights for the past 4 months. Olivia's face had gone gray. You told his wife. I told the truth. Same truth I'll tell the Virginia State Bar when I file my complaint about his billing fraud. Same truth I'll tell the managing partners when I present my recommendation for his termination. I moved closer to her. Same truth I'll tell the judge on Tuesday if you make me. You're destroying him. He destroyed himself, I pointed at the agreement. Just like you did. The only question now is how much damage you want to do to Emma in the process. She stared at the document, tears falling onto the pages. Her hand hovered over it, shaking. Sign it, I said quietly. Take the deal. Move forward. Be the mother Emma deserves, even if you couldn't be the wife I needed. And if I don't, then I'll see you in court. With every text message, every hotel receipt, every lie you told our daughter. I'll put Mrs. Peterson on the stand to describe how Emma cried when you didn't show up. I'll have her teacher explain how Emma's grades dropped because she was anxious about whether you'd remember to pick her up. I'll make sure every detail of your affair is public record. I pulled a pen from my pocket, set it beside the papers. Your choice, Olivia. Sign now, or explain to a judge why Emma should trust you when you've spent 4 months proving she can't. She picked up the pen. Her hand trembled as she brought it to the signature line. Where do I sign? I leaned over, flipped to the final page, pointed to the line. She signed. Her name looked shaky, uncertain. Nothing like the confident signature I'd watched her write 1,000 times before. Initial here, and here, and here. I guided her through each page, each clause, each surrender. When she finished, I collected the papers, slid them back into my briefcase. My attorney will file this with the court tomorrow. The custody hearing will proceed as scheduled, but it'll be a formality. The judge will review the agreement, confirm you signed voluntarily, and issue the order. She sat motionless, staring at her hands. You can see Emma Sunday, at my sister's house. 2 p.m. Don't be late. I walked to the door, opened it. Stopped. For what it's worth, I said without turning around. I really did love you. Once. I left her there in the darkness, in the hotel room she'd rented for someone else, surrounded by the wreckage of everything she'd thrown away. The door clicked shut behind me. I watched her face cycle through the stages. Denial had passed. Anger was fading. Now came bargaining. David, please. Olivia's voice dropped to a whisper. We can fix this. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But we have Emma to think about. Don't. The word came out sharp enough to cut. Don't use our daughter as a shield now. You didn't think about her when you were here. You didn't think about her when you told me you were at Katie's. You didn't think about her at all. She reached for me. I stepped back. The iPad, she said suddenly. You went through Emma's iPad. That's how you... The shared Apple ID you never bothered to turn off. I kept my voice level. Every message appeared on her device. Every photo. I found them 2 months ago when I was helping her with a game. Olivia's hand went to her mouth. Oh, God. She didn't see them. I check her iPad every night now. I've deleted everything before she could. I paused. You're welcome. The silence stretched between us. Outside, a car alarm went off, then stopped. 2 months, Olivia said finally. You've known for 2 months and you didn't say anything. I was building a case. A case. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You treated our marriage like litigation. You treated our marriage like a joke. I pulled out my phone, opened a folder. May 3rd. You told me you were having dinner with Katie. Tyler billed a client for those hours, but you were both at the Riverside Inn. May 10th. Another late night at Katie's. Another hotel. May 17th. Stop. Her voice broke. Just stop. I stopped. Not because she asked, but because I'd made my point. What happens now? She asked. You sign the papers. You agree to supervised visitation until the custody evaluation is complete. You move on with your life. I met her eyes. Quietly. And if I don't? Then I submit everything to the court. Every message, every lie, every time you left our daughter with a babysitter so you could be here. I let that sink in. Virginia courts take parental fitness seriously, especially when one parent can demonstrate a pattern of deception and neglect. I never neglected Emma. You left her with sitters 43 times in 4 months. I have the receipts, the sitters' statements, their testimony about the lies you told them. I pulled up another file. This is Rebecca Caldwell. She watched Emma on June 2nd while you were supposedly at a work event. Except your firm had no event that night. Rebecca documented it because she was concerned about the frequency. Olivia's face went white. You talked to the babysitters? I talked to everyone. I scrolled through my notes. Katie knows now, by the way. I called her this afternoon. She was very surprised to learn about all those dinners you supposedly had together. You're destroying my life. I'm protecting our daughters. I pocketed my phone. There's a difference. She sank onto the bed, head in her hands. For a moment, I almost felt something. Almost. Then I remembered Emma's face when Olivia missed her school play. Work emergency, she'd said. Tyler had billed those hours, too. No emergency, just another lie. Does Tyler know? Olivia asked. About Jennifer? He does now. I called her at 4:30 this afternoon. She was very interested in the hotel records. Jesus, David. She's filing tomorrow. Her attorney is Michael Webb. I watched Olivia's face. She knew the name. Webb was a shark. Apparently, Tyler's been using their joint credit card for some of your hotels. Jennifer noticed. She just didn't know who he was with. Olivia looked up. You gave her my name. I gave her the truth. What she does with it is her choice. I checked my watch. 11:53. You should go. This room is paid through tonight, but I imagine you'd rather not stay. Where am I supposed to go? Your mother's. Your things are already there. I'd moved them myself 3 hours ago. Every dress, every shoe, every trace of her removed from our house like evidence from a crime scene. I left you everything. I didn't keep anything out of spite. How generous. It's not generosity, it's efficiency. I moved toward the door. The locks are changed. The alarm code is different. If you try to enter the house, the police will be called. If you try to contact Emma outside the supervised visitation schedule, I'll file for an emergency custody order. If you try to contact Tyler, you'll be violating the firm's policy on workplace relationships, and I'll have grounds to contest any severance he might otherwise receive. She stared at me. You've thought of everything. That's what I do. I opened the door. The papers will be delivered to your mother's house tomorrow morning. You have 72 hours to respond. I suggest you find an attorney. I can't afford an attorney, not like yours. That's not my problem. I stepped into the hallway. Goodbye, Olivia. David, wait. I waited. I don't know why. I'm sorry, she said. I know it doesn't matter now, but I am. I'm sorry. I looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman I'd married 8 years ago. The woman who'd held Emma in the delivery room, tears streaming down her face. The woman who'd promised forever. So am I said. Then I left. The drive home took 20 minutes. Long enough for the adrenaline to fade. Long enough for my hands to start shaking on the wheel. I pulled over twice. Once to breathe. Once to call Diane. It's done, I said when she answered. How are you? I don't know yet. That was honest. I felt hollow. Victorious and hollow. How's Emma? Asleep? She asked about Mommy before bed. My chest tightened. What did you tell her? That Mommy's visiting Grandma for a few days. That you'll explain everything soon. Diane paused. David, she's going to need you to hold it together. I know. Do you? because you sound like you're about to break. Maybe I was. Maybe I'd been breaking for 2 months, so slowly I hadn't noticed. I'll be okay. Liar. But her voice was gentle. Come get some sleep. Emma will want to see you in the morning. I'll be there in an hour. I wasn't. I sat in my car outside the house, my house now, legally, and stared at the dark windows. The porch light was off. I'd forgotten to leave it on this morning. This morning, when I'd changed the locks, when I'd moved Olivia's things, when I'd called Jennifer Brennan and destroyed 2 marriages with 1 conversation. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. David Patterson. Mr. Patterson, this is Detective Lauren Mitchell with the Richmond Police Department. I need to ask you some questions about Valerie Cross. The name meant nothing to me. I'm sorry, who? Valerie Cross, 29 years old. She was reported missing this evening by her roommate. A pause. Her phone records show she met with your wife yesterday afternoon. You were listed as a contact in her appointment book. The hollow feeling in my chest turned to ice. I don't know anyone named Valerie Cross. According to her notes, you hired her to conduct a loyalty test on your wife. Is that correct? The world tilted. What? Mr. Patterson, I need you to come down to the station. We have some questions about Miss Cross's disappearance. My mind raced. Loyalty test? I'd never hired anyone. I'd never even considered it. Detective, there's been a mistake. I didn't hire anyone to test my wife. Then why is your name and phone number in her appointment book? Why did she meet with Mrs. Patterson yesterday at 2:15 p.m.? Yesterday. 2:15. I'd been in court. Olivia had been... Where had Olivia said she was yesterday afternoon? I couldn't remember. Mr. Patterson, are you still there? I'm here. My voice sounded distant. I'll come to the station, but I'm telling you, I didn't hire this woman. We'll sort it out when you get here. How soon can you arrive? 20 minutes. I hung up, sat in the darkness, tried to make sense of what I just heard. Loyalty test. Someone had hired a woman to test Olivia. Someone had used my name. And now that woman was missing. My phone buzzed again. Text message. Unknown number. You should have left well enough alone. I stared at the screen. The message disappeared as I watched, deleting itself. Then my phone rang. Olivia. I answered. David. Her voice was shaking. The police just called me. They're asking about some woman. They're asking about you. What the hell is going on? I don't know. They said you hired her. They said you were the last person to see her. I wasn't. I didn't hire anyone. I don't even know who she is. Silence. Then, David, what did you do? I sat in the passenger seat of Detective Mitchell's unmarked sedan, watching the streetlights blur past. She'd suggested I come to the station voluntarily, just to clear some things up, and I'd agreed immediately. The alternative was waiting for a warrant, and attorneys never wait for warrants when they can control the narrative. Your wife said you'd been acting strangely, Mitchell said, eyes on the road. Care to elaborate on that? I filed for divorce 5 days ago. I imagine that qualifies as strange behavior to someone who didn't see it coming. She mentioned you'd been distant for weeks, secretive. I discovered my wife was having an affair with one of my associates. I spent 2 months documenting it before confronting her. That required a certain amount of discretion. Mitchell glanced at me. 2 months is a long time to sit on something like that. I'm an attorney, detective. I build cases. I don't act impulsively. Right. She turned onto Market Street. So you never hired Valerie Cross to test your wife's loyalty? No. Never heard her name before today? Not until you said it. But someone used your name, your phone number, your credit card information. I'd been thinking about that since the call. My card information was compromised 6 weeks ago. I reported it to the bank. Filed a fraud claim. There should be a record. We'll check that. She pulled into the station parking lot. What about your phone number? Spoofing isn't difficult. You know that. True. She parked, killed the engine. But it's interesting timing, don't you think? You spend 2 months planning your divorce, gathering evidence, destroying your wife's life. I didn't destroy her life. I documented her choices. And right when everything falls into place, a woman who claims you hired her goes missing. Mitchell turned to face me. You see how that looks? I see exactly how it looks. That's why I'm here voluntarily instead of waiting for you to come back with questions I can refuse to answer. She studied me for a long moment. You're very calm for someone being investigated for a potential abduction. I'm innocent, and I'm an attorney. Panic doesn't serve either of those facts. We went inside. The station smelled like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. Mitchell led me to an interview room. Not an interrogation room, I noted, though the distinction was mostly semantic, and gestured to a chair. Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee? Water would be fine. She left. I sat with my hands folded on the table, aware of the camera in the corner. Everything I said and did here would be recorded, analyzed, potentially used against me. The key was to appear cooperative without saying anything that could be twisted later. Mitchell returned with 2 bottles of water and a thin folder. She sat across from me, opened the folder. Valerie Cross, 29, works for a company called Fidelity Insights. They specialize in loyalty testing, corporate and personal. You really never heard of them? No. They're based in Richmond. Been in business 3 years. Mostly they do corporate work, testing employees for industrial espionage, that kind of thing. But they also do personal relationship testing. Entrapment, I said. They call it verification. I'm sure they do. Mitchell slid a photo across the table. Professional headshot, attractive woman with dark hair and careful eyes. This is Valerie. Recognize her? I studied the photo. No. Your wife met with her yesterday at 2:15 p.m. coffee shop on Elm Street. Valerie introduced herself, said she'd been hired to test your wife's loyalty. Said you wanted to know if Olivia would be receptive to an affair. I almost laughed. I already knew she was having an affair. Why would I need to test her loyalty? Maybe you wanted proof. Maybe you wanted to catch her in the act. I had proof, months of it. Messages, photos, hotel receipts. I didn't need some stranger to manufacture more. Unless you wanted something specific, something you couldn't get from phone records. I met her eyes. Like what? I don't know yet. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Mitchell pulled out another document. Valerie's phone pinged off a tower near your neighborhood last night at 9:47 p.m. You were home then? I was at my sister's house, with my daughter. I didn't get home until after 11. Can anyone verify that? My sister. My daughter. Probably a few neighbors who saw my car pull in. Mitchell made a note. Valerie's last known location was 10:23 p.m. Her phone went dark after that. Apartment's been empty since this morning. Landlord checked after her employer reported her missing. What about her car? Found it 3 blocks from her apartment. Nothing inside. No signs of struggle. I took a drink of water, buying time to think. Someone had used my information to hire Valerie Cross. Someone had lured her into whatever situation she was now in. And that someone wanted me to take the fall. Detective, I understand why I'm a suspect. The timing, the circumstances, it all points in my direction. But consider the alternative scenario. Mitchell leaned back. I'm listening. I've spent 2 months methodically dismantling my wife's life. I've documented everything, involved attorneys, filed paperwork, contacted witnesses. Everything I've done has been legal, calculated, and traceable. Does that sound like someone who would suddenly pivot to abduction? People snap. I didn't snap. I spent 8 weeks not snapping. I channeled everything into documentation and legal strategy. Why would I throw that away for something that would inevitably point back to me? Maybe you didn't think it would point back to you. I'm an attorney detective. I know exactly how investigations work. If I were going to commit a crime, I wouldn't leave a trail of evidence with my name on it. Mitchell tapped her pen against the folder. So who did? Someone who wants me to look guilty. Someone who benefits from me being investigated for this. Your wife? I'd considered that. Olivia was desperate, cornered, facing supervised visitation and public humiliation. But this seemed too sophisticated for her. Too planned. I don't know, I admitted. But 6 weeks ago, my credit card was compromised. Someone made 3 small purchases before I caught it and reported it. The bank flagged it as fraud. That information is in their system. What kind of purchases? Coffee shop, gas station, online retailer. Small amounts, under $20 each. Testing to see if I'd notice. Mitchell wrote that down. And you think whoever stole your card information used it to hire Valerie Cross? It's possible. They'd have my name, card number, phone number from the bank records, everything they'd need to impersonate me. Except motive. Why would someone frame you for this? That was the question. I'd made enemies, every attorney does, but this was personal, intimate. Someone who knew about Olivia, about the affair, about my investigation. Tyler Brennan, I said slowly. My associate, the one who was sleeping with my wife. Mitchell's pen stopped moving. Go on. I fired him 3 days ago, sent documentation of his billing fraud to the state bar, informed his wife about the affair. He's facing professional sanctions, possibly disbarment, and a divorce. He has motive. To frame you for abduction? To destroy me the way I destroyed him. Make me look like I've gone off the rails, lost control. Undermine my credibility before the custody hearing. Mitchell considered this. Where is Tyler Brennan now? I don't know. I haven't had contact with him since I terminated him. We'll look into it. She closed the folder. In the meantime, I need you to provide a formal statement. Timeline of your activities over the last 48 hours. Phone records, credit card statements, anything that can verify your whereabouts. Of course. And David. She used my first name deliberately, shifting the dynamic. Don't leave town. We're going to have more questions. I nodded. I'd expected that. She left me alone in the room to write my statement. I pulled out my phone. They hadn't taken it yet, which meant I wasn't officially a suspect, and opened my email. There was a message from my attorney, Jack Riley, sent 20 minutes ago. Call me immediately. Don't talk to police without me present. Too late for that. But Jack would understand. Sometimes you had to control the narrative before the narrative controlled you. I was halfway through typing a response when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She's alive. For now. Keep the police focused on you, or she won't be. My hand tightened on the phone. The message disappeared 5 seconds after I read it. I stood in my living room now, legally speaking, with my phone pressed against my ear, listening to Detective Mitchell's measured breathing on the other end. Mr. Patterson, I need you to come to the station. We have some questions about your relationship with Valerie Cross. I've already told you, I never hired her. I never met her. Someone used my information. Then you won't mind explaining the security footage we obtained from her apartment building. My stomach dropped. What footage? Footage showing you entering her building 3 days before she disappeared. I sat down on the couch, my mind racing through the timeline. 3 days before she disappeared would have been Tuesday. I'd been at the firm until 8, then home with Emma. That's impossible. I was never there. The timestamp is clear. Tuesday, 6:47 p.m. You're wearing a gray suit, white shirt. You enter through the main entrance and take the elevator to the fourth floor. Valerie's floor. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to think like an attorney, not a suspect. Send me a screenshot of this footage. This isn't a negotiation. Detective, someone is framing me. If you want my cooperation, send me the image. I'll come to the station within the hour with my attorney. A pause. 1 hour, Mr. Patterson. The call ended. I immediately dialed Diane. David, it's barely 7 in the morning. I need you to keep Emma for another day, maybe 2. Something's happened. What kind of something? The kind that requires an attorney. Can you do it? Of course, but David, I'll explain later. Is Emma awake? Still sleeping. She asked about you last night, about when she could come home. Soon. Tell her soon. I ended the call before my voice could betray me. My phone buzzed. Detective Mitchell had sent the screenshot. The image showed a man in a gray suit entering a modern apartment building. The angle captured him from behind and slightly to the side. His build matched mine. His height matched mine. Even his gait looked familiar. That slight favor of the left leg I'd developed after tearing my ACL in college. But it wasn't me. I zoomed in on the image, studying every detail. The suit was similar to ones I owned, but the fabric had a subtle pattern I'd never worn. The shoes were wrong, expensive, but not my brand. And there, just visible at the edge of the frame, the man's left hand, no wedding ring. I'd worn my ring until the day I filed for divorce. Tuesday, I'd still been wearing it. I forwarded the image to my phone's photo analysis app, then pulled up my calendar. Tuesday, 6:47 p.m. I'd been in a conference room with 3 other attorneys, reviewing depositions for the Westfield case. We'd ordered dinner at 7. I had receipts, witnesses, and probably security footage from my own building. My phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Patterson? A woman's voice, professional but strained. Who is this? My name is Beth Donovan. I'm Valerie Cross's business partner. We run the loyalty testing service together. I stood, pacing to the window. I've never hired your service. I know, but someone did, using your information. And now, Valerie is missing, and I think I know why. Keep talking. Can we meet? Not at my office, somewhere public. I have information about who really hired us, but I can't go to the police, not yet. Why not? Because the person who hired us is connected to law enforcement. If I'm wrong, I'm committing professional suicide. If I'm right, I might be next. I checked my watch. 45 minutes until I needed to leave for the police station. Riverside Park, North Entrance, 20 minutes. How will I recognize you? You've seen my picture, apparently. I'll be the one who looks like the man on your security footage. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, then stopped. If someone was framing me this carefully, they might be watching. I returned to my home office and opened my laptop, accessing the security system I'd installed 2 weeks ago, right after discovering Olivia's affair. The cameras I'd placed covered all entrances, the driveway, and the street. I scrolled back through Tuesday's footage. There I was, arriving home at 8:23 p.m., still wearing my wedding ring. I downloaded the file to a secure drive. Then I checked the logs for my credit card, the one supposedly used to hire Valerie. The charge had been processed at 3:17 p.m. on the day she was hired. I pulled up my office building's security logs. I'd swiped into the building at 8:45 a.m. that day and hadn't left until 6:30 p.m. My assistant could verify I'd been in back-to-back meetings all afternoon. Someone had cloned my card. Someone who knew my schedule, my habits, my appearance. Someone who wanted me to take the fall for whatever happened to Valerie Cross. I drove to Riverside Park, checking my mirrors constantly. The morning was cold, the park nearly empty except for a few joggers. I parked near the north entrance and waited. A woman approached 5 minutes later. Early 30s, dark hair pulled back, wearing jeans and a jacket that couldn't quite hide how nervous she was. She slid onto the bench beside me. "Thank you for meeting me. You have 2 minutes before I need to leave for the police station. Talk." Beth pulled out her phone, keeping it angled away from passers-by. "This is the email we received requesting our services." She showed me a message from an address I'd never seen. davidpatterson.legal@gmail.com. That's not my email. I know, but look at the details in the request. They knew your wife's schedule, her sister's name, even which hotel she preferred. They knew everything about your situation. Who has access to that information? That's what I've been trying to figure out. She swiped to another screen. The payment was made with a card in your name, but the IP address that sent the initial inquiry traced back to a coffee shop downtown. We have security footage from that coffee shop. She showed me a grainy image of someone sitting at a laptop, face obscured by a baseball cap and the angle of the camera. Can you identify them? Not clearly, but I can tell you what Valerie told me after her first meeting with your wife. Beth's voice dropped. She said your wife seemed genuinely confused when Valerie mentioned you'd hired her. And she said something else, that your wife kept insisting you'd been acting strangely for weeks before. I had been. I discovered her affair. But your wife told Valerie you'd been acting strange before that. She gave Valerie specific dates. Dates that were before you could have known about the affair, according to the timeline in the police report. My hands clenched. What are you saying? I'm saying someone knew about the affair before you did. Someone who wanted to make sure you'd be in the right emotional state. Angry, vengeful, capable of violence when Valerie disappeared. They've been setting this up for weeks, maybe longer. Who? I don't know. But Valerie figured it out. She called me the night before she disappeared and said she'd made a mistake, that this wasn't a normal loyalty test. She said she was going to tell you everything, and then she vanished. I stood. Give me everything you have. All the emails, the footage, the payment records, everything. If I do that, I'm admitting we were part of this. You're already part of this. The question is whether you're a witness or an accomplice. I softened my tone slightly. I'm an attorney. I can protect you if you cooperate, but I can't help you if you hold back. Beth hesitated, then nodded. I'll send everything to your actual email address, the one on your firm's website. Do it now. I need it before I walk into that police station. She pulled out her phone and started typing. My phone buzzed 30 seconds later with an incoming email containing multiple attachments. One more thing, Beth said. Valerie kept a backup drive. She gave me half of the encryption key and said she'd hidden the other half somewhere safe. She said if anything happened to her, the drive would explain everything. Where's the drive? That's the problem. I don't know. She said she left it somewhere you'd find it, but only if you were looking. Why would she leave it where I'd find it? She'd never met me. I don't know, but she was very specific. She said, he'll find it when he realizes what he's lost. I stared at her. That doesn't make any sense. It didn't to me either. But those were her exact words. Beth stood. I've told you everything I know. Please find her, Mr. Patterson. She's my friend. I watched her walk away, then checked my watch. 15 minutes to get to the police station. I climbed into my car and opened the email Beth had sent, scrolling through the attachments while my mind raced. He'll find it when he realizes what he's lost, not when he discovers what's missing. When he realizes what he's lost. And then it hit me. I'd already lost something, my marriage, my family, my home as I'd known it. I pulled out of the parking lot, but I didn't head toward the police station. I drove home, my hands tight on the wheel, Beth's words echoing in my mind. Valerie had hidden something in my house, something she'd placed there before she disappeared, something that would explain who was really behind this. And I had exactly 10 minutes to find it before Detective Mitchell sent a patrol car to pick me up. I sat in my car outside the house I'd changed the locks on 3 days ago, staring at the dark windows. Emma's nightlight glowed faintly in her upstairs bedroom. Diane must have remembered to turn it on before putting her to bed. Somewhere inside, if Valerie Cross had been telling the truth, was a drive that would explain who was trying to destroy my life. I'd already lost the element of surprise with Olivia. I'd already played my hand professionally with Tyler. But whoever had orchestrated this frame-up was still operating in the shadows, and I was running out of time before Detective Mitchell's investigation tightened around me like a noose. The security footage from Valerie's building showed someone who looked exactly like me. The credit card charges were in my name, at locations I'd never been. My own meticulous documentation, the same skill that had trapped Olivia, was being used against me with equal precision. I pulled out my phone and called Diane. "David, it's almost midnight." "I know. Is Emma asleep?" "Has been for 2 hours. She asked about you again." My sister's voice softened. "I told her you'd see her tomorrow." "I will. I need to come by the house just for an hour. There's something I need to find." "The house you locked Olivia out of?" Diane's approval was evident. "Take your time. I've got Emma as long as you need." I ended the call and sat for another moment, watching the street. No unfamiliar cars. No movement in the neighboring windows. If someone was watching me, they were better at surveillance than I was at detecting it. The house felt different when I entered. Colder. The alarm system I'd had installed the day after confronting Olivia beeped twice as I punched in the code. I'd chosen Emma's birthday. 4 digits Olivia would never guess because she'd been at a conference that weekend, leaving me to celebrate with our daughter alone. I stood in the entryway and tried to think like Valerie Cross. Somewhere he'll find it when he realizes what he's lost. Beth's words echoed in my mind. What had I lost? My marriage, but I'd already known that was over before Valerie ever made contact with Olivia. My reputation, that was currently being shredded by whoever had cloned my credit card and hired someone to impersonate me. My home. I moved through the first floor methodically, checking places I hadn't looked in months. Behind books on the shelves, under couch cushions, inside the piano bench where Emma's music books were stacked. Nothing. The kitchen yielded nothing. The dining room nothing. My home office, the room where I'd spent 72 hours building my case against Olivia, was exactly as I'd left it. I climbed the stairs to the second floor. Emma's room smelled like lavender and baby powder. Diane had left Mr. Whiskers, Emma's stuffed rabbit, tucked beside her pillow. I stood in the doorway for a moment, watching the rise and fall of my daughter's breathing, and felt something crack in the careful control I'd maintained since finding that first notification. This was what I'd lost. Not Olivia, not the marriage, but the simple piece of putting my daughter to bed in a house where both her parents lived. The ordinary moments I'd taken for granted while my wife was in hotel rooms with my associate. I pulled the door closed gently and moved to the master bedroom. The bed was still unmade from the morning I'd left for the hotel confrontation. Olivia's side of the closet hung open, half empty. She'd come by while I was at work yesterday, taking what she could carry before the locks were changed again. She'd left the expensive dresses I'd bought her for firm events, taken the casual clothes she'd worn to book club and yoga class. I started with the obvious places: the nightstands, the dresser drawers, under the mattress, behind the headboard. Nothing. The bathroom was next. I checked the medicine cabinet, the linen closet, behind the toilet tank. I pulled out the drawers in Olivia's vanity, finding old makeup and hair ties and the pearl earrings I'd given her for our 5th anniversary. Still nothing. I sat on the edge of the bathtub and forced myself to think. Valerie Cross had been here. Beth said she'd done a walkthrough, posing as someone interested in loyalty testing. She'd met with Olivia, assessed the situation, realized it was a setup, and then she'd hidden something for me to find. But when would I find it? When would I realize what I'd lost? I stood and walked back into the bedroom, looking at it with fresh eyes. The answer hit me like a physical blow. I'd realized what I'd lost when I started dividing assets, when I started packing, when I started the process of dismantling a shared life. I went to Olivia's closet and began pulling out the dresses she'd left behind. Checked pockets, felt along seams. Nothing in the first three. Nothing in the fourth. The fifth dress, a navy blue cocktail dress she'd worn to last year's firm Christmas party, had something hard sewn into the hem. I carried it to the bed and found my pocket knife in the nightstand. The stitching was nearly invisible, professional work that matched the original hem. I cut carefully, and a small flash drive wrapped in plastic fell into my palm. My hands were shaking. I grabbed my laptop from the office and returned to the bedroom, sitting on the floor with my back against the bed. The drive had a single folder labeled Patterson Case. Inside were video files, audio recordings, and a text document titled Read Me First. I opened it. David, if you're reading this, I'm either dead or disappeared, and you're being framed for it. I'm sorry. I tried to warn you, but they moved faster than I expected. Everything you need is here. Video of the man who hired me. He said his name was David Patterson, but I knew immediately he wasn't you. I take photographs of all my clients without their knowledge. Security measure. Audio recordings of our conversations. He knew details about your wife's affair that hadn't happened yet. He knew her schedule. He knew about your shared Apple ID. He told me to make sure Olivia mentioned the loyalty test to you. This was never about testing your wife. This was about framing you for my disappearance. I don't know why, but I know who. The man who hired me works at your firm. I followed him after our second meeting. Patterson and Whitmore, third floor. I have photos of him entering the building with his employee badge visible. His real name is on the badge in photo 18. I was going to the police the day I disappeared. I'm guessing he found out. I'm sorry I couldn't stop this. But at least now you'll know the truth. V. My vision blurred. I opened the photo folder with numb fingers. Photos 1 to 17 showed a man in his late 30s, brown hair, average build, wearing a wedding ring. He looked nothing like me except in the most generic way. White, professional, approximately the same height. Photo 18 showed him entering Patterson and Whitmore's lobby, his badge clearly visible on his jacket. I zoomed in until the name was legible. Ryan Foster, Senior Associate. The laptop nearly slipped from my hands. Ryan Foster. The associate I'd mentored for 3 years. The one I'd recommended for partnership track. The one who'd been so sympathetic when I'd told him about Tyler's termination, who'd offered to help manage my caseload while I dealt with the personal situation. The one who'd had access to my office, my files, my schedule. The one who knew I used the firm's credit card for client expenses. I opened the video files. The first showed Ryan sitting across from Valerie in what looked like a coffee shop, leaning forward intently. I turned up the volume. Needs to look completely authentic. You approach the wife, you mention that her husband hired you, you do your standard assessment. Then you tell her you're concerned about his behavior. Plant the seeds. Valerie's voice cautious. What kind of seeds? That he's been obsessive, controlling. That you're worried about what he might do if he finds out about the affair. Ryan's smile made my stomach turn. When the police come asking, she'll remember you said that. She'll testify that her husband was acting strangely. And then what? Then you disappear. I'll handle the rest. The video ended. I sat in the darkness of my bedroom, holding evidence of a conspiracy I still didn't fully understand. Ryan Foster wanted me destroyed, had orchestrated an elaborate frame-up that used my own wife's infidelity as the foundation, had made me look like a jealous, unstable husband who'd hired a loyalty tester and then made her disappear. But why? I found Ryan Foster exactly where I expected him to be, at his desk on the third floor of Patterson and Whitmore, working late as he always did. The office was mostly empty, just a few associates grinding through billable hours. He looked up when I walked in, and for just a moment, his expression flickered. Surprise. Then calculation. Then the friendly concern he'd worn like a mask for 3 years. David, I heard about the police investigation. This is insane. I dropped the flash drive on his desk. His face went completely blank. Valerie Cross is alive, I said quietly. She contacted me 2 hours ago from a motel in North Carolina. Turns out she figured out what you were planning and ran. Smart woman. That was a lie. I still didn't know where Valerie was, but I needed him off balance. Ryan's hand moved toward his phone. I was faster, placing my own phone on his desk. The screen showed Detective Mitchell's number, already dialed, waiting for me to press send. Before you do anything stupid, I said, you should know I've already sent copies of everything on that drive to my attorney, to the police, and to 3 separate cloud storage accounts. So whatever you're thinking, don't. He leaned back in his chair, and something shifted in his expression. The mask fell away entirely. What remained was cold and calculating. You always were thorough, he said. Why? The question came out harder than I intended. 3 years, Ryan. I mentored you. I vouched for you. I recommended you for partnership. Exactly. His voice was bitter. You recommended me, like I was your charity case, your project. Ryan's got potential, but he needs guidance. Ryan's solid, but he's not quite there yet. You weren't ready for partner. I had better numbers than you did at my age, better client retention, better win record. He stood, pacing to the window. But you were the golden boy. David Patterson, the name on the door, the one everyone looked up to. And I was just the guy who worked for you. So you decided to destroy my life? I decided to level the playing field. He turned back to me. You were so wrapped up in your perfect marriage, your perfect daughter, your perfect career. You didn't even notice when Tyler started sleeping with Olivia. I knew about it 2 months before you did. The pieces clicked into place. You told me. You're the one who made sure I'd see those notifications on Emma's iPad. I adjusted some settings on Olivia's phone during the Christmas party, made sure everything would sync. He smiled. I knew you'd check Emma's iPad eventually. You're that kind of father. And once I found out, you knew I'd spend months building a case, becoming obsessed, acting exactly like someone who might hire a loyalty tester and then make her disappear when things went wrong. You made it easy. All I had to do was clone your credit card. Thank you for leaving it on your desk that day. And hire Valerie using your information. The rest wrote itself. Except Valerie figured it out. Ryan's expression darkened. She was smarter than I expected. Started asking questions, following me. I had to accelerate the timeline. Where is she? I honestly don't know. She disappeared before I could... He stopped, realizing what he'd almost admitted. Before you could kill her? I kept my voice level. That was the plan, wasn't it? Make her disappear, frame me for it, destroy my credibility before the partnership vote. The partnership vote you were going to dominate. Again. His hands clenched. While I got passed over. Again. Because David Patterson is just so much better than everyone else. I looked at the man I'd considered a colleague, almost a friend, and felt nothing but pity. I'm pressing send now, I said, picking up my phone. Detective Mitchell will be here in 10 minutes. You can wait here, or you can run. Your choice. You think this ends with me arrested? Ryan laughed. You think anyone will believe you? I'll say you fabricated everything. That you're so desperate to deflect from your own guilt that you're framing me. Except Valerie's testimony will corroborate everything on that drive, and the security footage from the coffee shop where you met her, and the financial records showing you used my cloned card information, and the IP logs from the fake email account you created. I pressed send. I spent the last 4 hours building a case, Ryan. It's what I do. The color drained from his face. You taught me well, I added. Document everything. Leave no gaps. Make it airtight. I left him there and walked to the elevator. By the time I reached the lobby, I could hear sirens in the distance. 3 months later, I sat in family court with Emma beside me, her hand in mine. The custody arrangement had been finalized. Primary custody to me, supervised visitation for Olivia every other weekend. My ex-wife had signed without contest, broken by the weight of everything that had unraveled. Ryan Foster had been arrested and charged with fraud, attempted kidnapping, and conspiracy. Valerie Cross had indeed been hiding in North Carolina, and she'd testified to everything. His career was over. His marriage was over. His freedom would be gone for the next 8 to 12 years. Tyler Brennan had been disbarred. His wife had taken him for everything in the divorce. And Olivia had moved in with her mother, started therapy, and was slowly rebuilding a relationship with Emma. She'd never be the wife I'd married, but she was learning to be the mother our daughter needed. As for me, I'd been cleared of all suspicion within 48 hours of Ryan's arrest. The partnership vote had been postponed, then quietly shelved. I'd withdrawn my name from consideration. Some victories aren't worth the cost. Emma tugged on my sleeve. Dad, can we get ice cream? I looked down at my daughter, 7 years old, resilient, adapting to her new reality with the flexibility of childhood, and smiled. Yeah, sweetheart, we can get ice cream. We walked out of the courthouse into autumn sunshine. My phone buzzed with messages from my attorney, from Diane, from colleagues offering support. I ignored them all. Because I'd learned something in the wreckage of my marriage and the conspiracy that followed. Winning isn't about destroying your enemies or proving you're right. It's about protecting what matters and knowing when to walk away from what doesn't. I'd won the custody battle. I'd won my freedom. I'd won the truth. But the real victory was Emma's hand in mine, her voice chattering about sprinkles and waffle cones, her trust that I'd be there when she needed me. Everything else, the career, the reputation, the vindication, was just noise. We got ice cream. We went home. We built a new normal, one day at a time. And that was enough.